instead of coming in peacefully, they came in slaughtering Palestinians. They took him to the town that used to be called Deir Yassin. They poured gasoline down his throat and they burned him alive. You know how sick the Israeli government is? The father of Mohammed Abu Khdeir went and he immediately circled around his house because he knew what Israel's going to do. And he recorded on his phone the video footage showing 3 Israeli men kidnapping his son. The Israeli government went to every single business and home around Mohammed Abu Khdeir's house, and they went ahead and picked up all the surveillance footage. And a few days later, they told Mohammed Abu Khdeir's family, we apologize, but for some reason, all the evidence was lost. They're not willing to simply go and arrest 3 Israeli men that burned a child alive just so it doesn't look bad and they said they lost all the evidence. But Mohammed Abu Khdeir's father luckily had the footage, and he contacted an Israeli non-Zionist Jewish lawyer who helped them, and they reached out to the media, and they threatened the government of Israel, and the lawyer told them, I have the footage. Either you do your job and arrest these 3 men that kidnapped and burned Mohammed Abu Khdeir alive, or there's going to be a really difficult problem explaining yourselves to the world. We show them the footage. Approach and arrest the 3 men. And you know what all 3 men did after they burned Mohammed Abu Khdeir alive? This is their testimony. They immediately went to a nightclub and was drinking till 5 a.m. They just burned alive a child, and they went to a nightclub right afterwards. That's how unjust, that's how evil the government of Israel is. Please, everyone, please understand, please. I have family all throughout Palestine. They just want to live with dignity. They just want the same rights as everyone else. That's it. That chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's not Palestinians wanting to push Jews into the sea. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard of. They're simply saying, from the river to the sea, all Palestine be free, meaning people who belong to the land of Palestine, including Jews who belong to Palestine. Not Jews that never ever stepped foot in Palestine, Jews that belong to the land of Palestine. They're simply asking for equal rights. That includes the Christian Palestinians.
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Clueless to the fact that Christians are also persecuted in Israel, Palestine. It is a fact. It is a fact. You can Google anything I tell you, by the way. Everything I tell you, I expect you to Google and search it. The 3rd oldest church in the world is in Gaza. It was just bombed by Israel. But Fox News, Hannity, Bill Maher, they don't talk about that. The Holy Sepulchre Church, when the tomb of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, is in Jerusalem, I met with the caretaker, I met with the Christian priests in their homes, and in their own words, they said, Israel makes us live as 2nd and 3rd class citizens. There's a man by the name of Benzi Gopstein. He's an extremist Israeli. I bet none of you know, I don't expect you to know because Fox News is not going to show it. Every year on Christmas, he leads a few thousand people in front of a church calling Christians blood-sucking vampires and idol worshippers. Now, some of you probably thinking that's crazy, that how is it in this country, how is it the majority of Christians are supporting Israel? Because the majority of Christian evangelicals have their own extremist views. They believe that only when all Jews migrate to Israel, only then will Jesus, peace be upon him, return, and then he will go ahead and save those who believe in him and those who don't. The point of what I'm saying is you must know these facts so you can wake up other people. When I went to churches, I was nervous, but I believed if I gave them the facts, they will support Palestine. And every church I went to when I ended, I'm like, here it comes. People are going to stand up. They're going to yell at me, shout at me. Every single person at every church I went to all stood up and supported Palestine when I just simply gave them the facts.
I'm here to return my Global War on Tourism Medal and my National Defense Medal because they're both lives.
And I'm turning in these medals today for the people of Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, and
and all victims of occupation across the world.
And I'm giving back my medal. May they be able to forgive us for what we've done to them.
I was a nuclear, biological, chemical specialist for a war that didn't have any weapons of mass destruction.
I'm here to return my global.
Here's your Israeli war update in under 1 minute. Israel issued a clear threat to Iran, stating that if Hezbollah does decide to enter the war and attack Israel, that Israel will attack Iran and I quote, cut the head off of the snake. They can be further quoted saying that they will wipe the Ayatollahs off the face of the earth. This is because of a threatened invasion by Hezbollah in the north side of Israel. Hezbollah gets funding and its marching orders from Iran. The Iranian Observer claims that up to 40 Israel Defense Force soldiers have been killed in the fighting on the north side of Israel by Hezbollah. An Israeli military tank engaged in an Egyptian position by accident. Israel has already issued an apology and says they are investigating the matter. One Israeli soldier was killed and 3 more were wounded in a raid inside of the Gaza Strip. This raid was to recover bodies and also gather more information on hostages currently being held by Hamas. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad has issued an evacuation order for all non-essential personnel. No clear invasion order of the Gaza Strip has been given yet to IDF. However, there are several rumors that the IDF is on increased standby to begin the operation. Here's your Israeli war update in under 1 minute. Israel issued a clear threat to Iran, stating that if Hezbollah does decide to enter the war and attack Israel, that Israel will attack Iran and I quote, cut.
I wanted to share this video of what this young Egyptian woman said to CNN's Clarissa Ward. She is on the Egyptian side of the border. Take a listen.
You to condemn. Where are your condemnations? Where's your channel covering this? Cover this. Say the truth. We understand you're an employee. You're just a puppet. You're just a mouthpiece. Come talk to me like a human being. Come talk to me like a human being. Thank you. I understand you have your foreign policy. No, I've heard you. I've heard you. You hear me. I understand you have your foreign policy. I understand you speak for your government. I understand you represent your government. But that being said, you're a country that's claimed free speech. Your customized democracy is actually what led to Hamas. And now we are watching an occupation and we are watching the result of your silence, of your misrepresentation of Arabs. We stand with the Palestinians and we stand with Arabs. And they try and change the narrative because you own the narrative, see? This is our problem. You own the narrative. You own the United Nations. You own Hollywood. You own all these mouthpieces. Where are our voices? Our voices need to be heard as well. We've been watching your channels. And instead of mourning our dead, instead of mourning these Palestinian children, we've been having to deal with more dehumanization of Arabs.
If you ever wondered how it's possible to grow up in Israel, to join the army, and treat Palestinians the way they are treated, I want you to listen to this very important interview from a woman named Abigail Abarbanel. While she was born and raised in Israel and joined the army, it wasn't until she lived in Australia for 10 years for her to realize she was brainwashed to hate Palestinians. Now she's a psychotherapist and an activist for Palestinian rights, and listen to what she had to say.
Apart from wiping out Hamas, what's Israel's main aim here? Would they occupy more territory, given the scenes that we're seeing today, which reminds many of the Nakba?
Well, to answer your question, it's important to look at context, and the context is very rarely mentioned in the media. Israel is the product of the Zionist movement, and the plan of the Zionist movement was always to create an exclusively Jewish state on all of Palestine. In order to do that, you have to remove the non-Jewish indigenous people. That's the plan, and that's never actually changed. The Nakba was an attempt to make it happen, but back then Israel was unable to get rid of all the Palestinians, and the 750,000 people that were ethnically cleansed ended up in places like Gaza and around the Middle East. What you see now is nothing special in a way. It is a continuation of the same thing. I don't think the words settler colonialism are mentioned enough in the media. And so when your viewers, when people are watching this, they're trying to understand what's going on, but they don't understand it. There is a an illusion, I think, the media are trying to create that Israel has promoted of symmetry between Israel and the Palestinian people. And there is no symmetry. There is no symmetry between a settler colonizer who is trying to remove the indigenous people and the indigenous people themselves. It's a complete imbalance of power. I think that the attack by Hamas in Gaza was just a pretext to basically ethically cleanse Gaza. What you see now is not just a conflict. It's not something that's going to disappear. Israel will not stop until it gets rid of all the Palestinians. And I actually believe that once they finish with Gaza, they're going to come for the West Bank. And after that, probably for the Israeli citizens, the Palestinian citizens of Israel. And there are calls in the Israeli government to remove citizenship from them, which will make them stateless as well. Israel will not stop, and the world needs to understand. And the idea that a huge country like the United States enables this is it's just inconceivable to me. What you're seeing is an action of genocide. Israel wants to remove the Palestinian people, and that's its plan all along.
Talk to us a bit about your story and what led you to renounce your Israeli citizenship.
I was born and raised in Tel Aviv. I served in my 2 years in the military, as everybody else does. And I left Israel in 1991, and I went to Australia. And it wasn't until 10 years after I moved to Australia that I started to realize that I was brought up on a false narrative of our history. I was brought up to believe that we Israeli Jews were always the victims, that we were the good guys, that we never did anything wrong, and that the reason that the Arabs, and there was no word for Palestinians back when I was a child, but the reason that the Arabs were giving us a hard time is simply because they were anti-Semitic like everybody else. We were brought up to believe that Jews are never safe unless they live in an exclusively Jewish state, only for Jews and only surrounded by Jews. And it took me 10 years in Australia to finally realize that what I thought was true wasn't quite right. And I met Palestinians for the first time as equals in Australia, and members of citizens of other Arab countries as well, and realized they weren't actually my enemy. We were the bad guys in the story. And it was very hard at first to come to terms with it. In 2001, I renounced my Israeli citizenship, but even then, I don't think I quite understood the idea of settler colonialism, and that's in fact what we were, what the Israeli Jewish population was doing. But I did eventually, and I've been speaking out to the best of my ability ever since. I was a soldier in the Israeli army. I was a soldier during the Sabra and Shatila massacres. In an indirect way, I colluded with that. And I've always felt that it's my job to speak out as best I can. When you grow up in Israel, it's a very insular kind of culture. You only hear one narrative. And the narrative is we are Jews, we were persecuted, which is correct, but it's true. And now that we're in Israel and want to have a place of our own to be safe, nobody's going to let us do that. When I was as young as 6 or 7 years old, and I was at school, they used to show us images from the Holocaust, really horrible images. You know, when Auschwitz was liberated, and there's these images of the children and the emaciated people in stripy pajamas and dead bodies piled up, horrific stuff. And the teachers would just say, this could be you. This could be you. You're taught that the only thing that stands between you and another Holocaust is Israel. And therefore, your whole life needs to be about defending Israel. And the thing is that that's what Israelis really believe. Despite all the evidence, despite the fact that there are more Jews living outside of Israel perfectly safely, Israeli Jews are brought up to believe that everybody's against them. I've been watching the Israeli news, and it's interesting that they are surprised that they get the support they get. They really do believe the world is all against them. I grew up on this. So that's it. It's a kind of a closed system, and Israel is deeply insular. What's going on in the news now is basically just one narrative that confirms and validates what Israelis are always being taught. You have to get out to understand and to open your mind to the fact that it actually doesn't fit the evidence.
We're from the organization March Forward, and we're here to say to all those serving in the Army, and the Marines, and the Air Force, and the Navy, that you have the absolute right to refuse to take part in these criminal wars, and that's a right that all of you should exercise. You have no reason to go put your life on the line and kill and die for profit. We've been to Iraq, we've been to Afghanistan, and we know what these wars are really about. And we joined the military for many reasons. Because we need a college education, because we need a job, because we need health care. And then we joined the military, and they tell us that our enemies are poor people in caves in Afghanistan, or poor people in the deserts of Iraq. But we've been to those countries, and we know that our enemies are not other poor people abroad. Our enemies are the people that laid us off from our jobs, that denied us health care, that make it impossible to get an education. Our enemies are not in the poorest countries on the planet, but right here in the richest one. Now these wars, the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan alone, are costing over $700 million every single day. This is a crime every single day, while so many of us are hurting. Well, I think all of us here and the vast majority of people in this country would agree that we can spend $700 million a day better than bombing people that we have no reason to bomb. We can spend $700 million a day rebuilding those countries we've destroyed. We can spend $700 million a day caring for the veterans we get home when they get home, and then we can spend $700 million a day giving every single person health care, a college education, a job, and a livelihood, and a home. That's what we need to be spending our money on.
Okay, I'm going to ask all of you to read between the lines on this one, knowing that there was an Israeli hostage who already told us that the IDF indiscriminately gunned everyone down, including Israeli hostages. Think about what it would look like if these hostages came out of being held captive looking okay, not beat up or harmed or anything. It wouldn't look good. So when they say they're going to prioritize defeating Hamas over rescuing their own people, I think they're going to kill them all and say it was Hamas.
You have family members, friends, or just anyone you know in your life who's not on TikTok, tell them they need to get on TikTok now. Because as a history teacher, well, a former history teacher, I teach music now, but as a history teacher, I'm telling you, I am watching some of the worst events of history being repeated in real time. And none of the mainstream media is covering it accurately. In fact, this is some of the most dangerous propaganda I've ever seen. From the president's comments that were false to so many of the fake stories that are still going around. People are falling for it. I've had too many conversations with people in real life who aren't on TikTok, and they're just completely oblivious. They're saying exactly all the talking points that the news is saying. It's working, and that's dangerous. In this day and age, it is dangerous to be that blindly ignorant about what's really going on. And the true events about what's going on with Palestine and Israel is being shown on TikTok in real time. So anyone you know who's not on TikTok, tell them they need to get on TikTok. Tell them to look up the Free Palestine hashtag and tell them to get informed on the truth. Because at this time, being ignorant is dangerous.
This is pretty scary. Some influencers that are posting about what's going on in Palestine are getting messages like this randomly on WhatsApp. They're basically saying if you stop posting about Palestine, start posting about Israel, we'll make it worth your while. If you keep posting about Palestine, you'll suffer the consequences. Of the influencers I've seen who posted this message, one of them's been Dina Tokyo, and the other's been Faryal Mekhdum, and then also Dina Al-Sharif. This is pretty scary. Some influencers that are posting about what's going on in Palestine are getting messages like this randomly on WhatsApp. They're basically saying if you stop posting about Palestine, start posting about Israel, we'll make it worth your while. If you keep posting about Palestine, you'll suffer the consequences. Of the influencers I've seen who posted this message, one of them's been Dina Tokyo, and the other's been Faryal Mekhdum, and then also Dina Al-Sharif. This is pretty scary. Some influencers that are posting about what's going on in Palestine are getting messages like this randomly on WhatsApp. They're basically saying if you stop posting about Palestine, start posting about Israel, we'll make it worth your while. If you keep posting about Palestine, you'll suffer the consequences. Of the influencers I've seen who posted this message, one of them's been Dina Tokyo, and the other's been Faryal Mekhdum, and then also Dina Al-Sharif. This is pretty scary. Some influencers that are posting about what's going on in Palestine are getting messages like this randomly on WhatsApp. They're basically saying if you stop posting about Palestine, start posting about Israel, we'll make it worth your while. If you keep posting about Palestine, you'll suffer the consequences. Of the influencers I've seen who posted this message, one of them's been Dina Tokyo, and the other's been Faryal Mekhdoum.
For those of you who didn't know, the Israeli people, some of them, are protesting and they are calling for Netanyahu's resignation because they believe he's a failure. They believe he's committing war crimes. They believe he is the devil himself. They are calling for his resignation. And I've heard even some reports say that they're willing to exchange him for the hostages. They want to give Netanyahu to Hamas to exchange him for the hostages. Yeah, his people don't like him. For those of you who didn't know,
So now that it's been confirmed that Israel is not the one that perpetuated the airstrike against the Gazan hospital, are y'all going to come out and correct your blatant misinformation, or are you just going to keep rolling with it?
Oh, little T, it's Mika. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my dog, Bella. She's female. Hold on. It's Mika again. All right. Well, you know how this ends. Let's get it.
On the 17th of October 2023, hundreds of Palestinians were killed when the Al-Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza was bombed. Officials in Gaza blame the blast on an Israeli airstrike. The Israeli army denies responsibility and claims the attack was due to a failed rocket launch by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They say they used Al Jazeera footage to allegedly confirm these claims.
But you're asking me for proof? You don't need to get proof from me. All you need to do is switch over to Al Jazeera, who broadcasted it live, and you can actually see. I've got a screen caption just for you to see. This is Al Jazeera from last night.
Our digital investigations team, SANAD, decided to investigate these claims and conducted an in-depth analysis of this Al Jazeera video, along with several other videos from multiple sources, and established a detailed second-by-second timeline of the events. By analysing Al Jazeera's live stream starting at 1845, the team was able to identify 4 Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, targeting the area near the hospital, starting at 1854-28, then 1855-03, then 1857-42, and then 1858-04. That's military time for just before 7 p.m. local. The team cross-referenced this video with another captured by a CCTV camera situated south of Tel Aviv, showing a wide view of the Gaza Strip. That video shows a series of rocket launches from Gaza. The CCTV video clearly shows how the Iron Dome intercepted these rockets, going back to the Al Jazeera live feed at 1859-35. We can see a single rocket launched from Gaza. This is the rocket in question. This rocket can also be seen on the Israeli CCTV video. 15 seconds later, Al Jazeera's live feed shows that the same rocket was intercepted at exactly 18:59:50. This interception has the same afterglow seen in previous interceptions. A closer look at the video captured by the Al Jazeera live feed shows the rocket being completely destroyed and broken apart in the sky. According to all feeds and videos analyzed, this rocket was intercepted and was the last one launched from Gaza before the bombing of the hospital. 5 seconds after that interception, an explosion in Gaza can be seen, followed 2 seconds later by a much larger explosion. This is the strike that hit Al-Ahli Arab Hospital. As a result, Al Jazeera Digital Investigations team is able to refute the Israeli army claim and prove that the strike on the Al-Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza was not caused by a failed rocket launch.
Misinformation, Mika. We're waiting.
Earlier today, 20 trucks were allowed to go into Gaza to help the people of Palestine. As you can see, these are the trucks that went in. This is them coming back. Everybody's like celebrating that, you know, at least we had 20 trucks to go in to give food and whatever else that the people of Palestine needs. It was like a whole thing. And like massive props to the drivers of the truck, because this is a dangerous mission, because they could have gone in and never come out, because we know Israel is unpredictable, right? But with that being said, 20 trucks is not going to feed 2 million people. Excuse me. 2 million people are in Gaza right now. What is 20 trucks going to do for these people? Huh? If it was a white nation like Ukraine, the whole Russia and Ukraine, how many billions of dollars did America go and send to Ukraine to help them? How many? The whole world got up and donated to Ukraine for them billions of dollars to help the Ukrainians. And we have only 20 trucks to give to 2 million people in Gaza? Absolutely not. We're going to continue fighting. I need you guys to share this video. Literally blow it up. And every other person's video as a creator that you see on this app, I need you to keep pushing, okay? Keep pushing this narrative. Keep pushing the truth. We're going to continue to apply pressure, because 20 trucks, what is going to do? What is that going to do? That cannot even feed all the children of Gaza, talk less of the women and the men. What is 20 trucks going to do? Let's continue to apply pressure. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If that was in a white nation, billions of dollars would have gone to help them. And we only have 20 trucks. We are not accepting the bare minimum. We are not going to have it. Blow this up and support other creators, because this is absolutely not going to happen. Earlier today, 20 trucks were allowed to go into Gaza to help the people of Palestine. As you can see, these are the trucks that went in. This is them coming back. Everybody's like celebrating that, you know, at least we had 20 trucks to go in to give food and whatever else that the people of Palestine needs. It was like a whole thing. And like massive props to the drivers of the truck, because this is a dangerous mission, because they could have gone in and never come out, because we know Israel is unpredictable, right? But with that being said, 20 trucks is not going to feed 2 million people. Excuse me. 2 million people are in Gaza right now. What is 20 trucks going to do for these people? Huh? If it was a white nation like Ukraine, the whole Russia and Ukraine, how many billions of dollars did America go and send to Ukraine to help them? How many? The whole world got up and donated to Ukraine for them billions of dollars to help the Ukrainians. And we have only 20 trucks to give to...
So this got no media attention, but about a week ago, Hamas put out a video saying why they did what they did, how they have been following the laws of war, unlike Israel, and how the Western media does not want to listen to their side of the story. Listen.
Flood operation. Over 75 years, our Palestinian people have been eager to freedom and self-determination. This genuine right was obstructed by the Israeli occupation and the failure of the international community to stand by their obligation to implement the many UN resolutions that guaranteed the Palestinian national rights. Speaking about a 75-year-old occupation that neglected and ignored all political and legal means to settle the conflict, where the Israeli enemy continued their policy of denial of the Palestinian people's existence and their national rights, which is a war crime that turned Gaza to the biggest open-air prison on earth, where a whole generation has lost all kinds of hopes. The operation targeted only Israeli military bases and compounds that were suffocating the people of Gaza for more than 17 years. Fourth, we here would like to stress that there were clear instructions from the top commander of Al-Qassam brigades to avoid targeting civilians or killing them. And many released videos showed how Al-Qassam fighters were keen to avoid harming civilians. On the Israeli allegations of killing civilians and beheading of babies, which were unethically and unprofessionally adopted by many Western media outlets, this is completely shame that these media outlets follow such lies and Israeli propaganda without making simple efforts to check the reality of these allegations. We firmly deny these allegations, and as we reject this media bias, we call on the media agencies to abide by the journalism code of ethics.
To start with, I didn't even know this was called the Al-Aqsa flood. which is a mosque where several times Israeli forces have attacked Palestinian worshippers. And in one of those attacks by the Israeli forces in a mosque, 160 Palestinians were injured, including 400 being arrested. So the Western media, to start with, isn't reporting on the 76 years of atrocities committed against the Palestinian people, but it isn't even talking about the attacks on their mosques from a month ago. And this video of Hamas explaining why they did what they did, what they're looking for, freedom for Palestine, and how the Israeli side is spreading nothing but lies about them, has literally gotten no media coverage whatsoever. And again, they wonder why younger people are not trusting the Western media. It's because they're not reporting on things like this on the Palestinian side, talking in their own words, saying, hey, we have been asking for freedom and peace for the last 7 decades, and you have not heard us. The only thing the Western media is concerned with is the Israeli narrative, so you blindly support all they're doing. I've tagged the creator below who posted 8 minutes of this video, and you need to watch it because there's a lot of information here. And like I've been saying, they want to be free, so free Palestine.
Me down the rabbit hole of learning what Christian Zionism is. And
as someone who used to be a Christian Zionist, I don't think we always fully realize the impact that belief system has on how we portray and perceive and react to what is happening in Israel and Gaza. Now, there are a lot of different flavors of Christian Zionism. Mine was couched in Mormonism, but it's basically the belief that the country of Israel had to be formed before Jesus could come again, and it has to be defended so he can come again. Now, the ability for Israel to defend itself, something we hear all the time, is crucial in this belief system because they also believe that Israel's going to do something to piss off the whole world. The whole world is going to hate them and want to fight them. Now, this is where in the Mormon version, the Mormons come in to save the day because is this a geopolitical conflict that has nothing to do with them? Yeah, no. They're always the main character in their own stories. So 2 Mormon prophets will come and defend Jews, defend Israel against all the rest of the world that is fighting them until they are killed. And then they will be paraded around the streets for 3 days and resurrected in front of everyone. Then Jesus will come back and destroy everyone who fought against Israel, but he can't come back until all of those other things happen first. So if you talk to a Christian Zionist right now and got them to be really honest, they probably wouldn't say that they're entirely upset with what's happening because it's a confirmation of their belief system. They think that this is proof that Jesus is coming, the second coming is close. So when you believe that narrative, when that is your belief system, how does it affect your perception and response to what is happening in Israel and Gaza? When I was a Christian Zionist, I was having a debate with a friend about the current then events in Israel and Gaza. Just a side note, since my last video, I've had a shocking number of people in my comments and DMs telling me to stay in my own lane and only talk about Idaho and that I need to tread lightly. And I'm not a Janie come lately to this topic. I've been talking about it for a while. I've been talking about it far longer than I ever thought about talking about Idaho politics. So thank you for your input, but I will continue to talk about the topics that I think are important on my own platform. Now, I disagree with the position I took in this debate because I was conservative, I was a Christian Zionist, and it's really incredible when you don't just read things that reinforce your worldview and your religious belief system, how much your perspective changes. Now, in this debate, my friend brought up the human rights issues that were happening, particularly in Gaza. And I remember this conversation from 12 years ago. Actually, I think about it a lot and then I can't fall asleep because my response to think about the humanity of the Palestinian people, think about the gross human rights violations that they're being forced to live under. And my response was, you do remember how this all ends, right? Holy shit, 2011, Lindsay, holy shit. And within the framework of Christian Zionism, it didn't matter how terribly the Israeli government treated the Palestinian people. It was expected. I expected they do lots of really terrible things. And my job was always to defend them and stand with Israel because that was the side that Jesus was going to redeem in the second coming. So incredibly, wildly fucked up. But if you'd asked me about my religion, I'd say, no, my religion is about compassion and love and helping people find the love of God and be redeemed through Christ. When actually, I was using my religion to excuse atrocities against Palestinian people because I wanted to live with Jesus after I died. And I think these views fundamentally impact how we view and report and excuse the atrocities committed by the Israeli government.
And it led me down the rabbit hole of learning what Christian Zionism is. And
as someone who used to be a Christian Zionist, I don't think we always fully realize the impact that belief system has on how we portray and perceive and react to what is happening in Israel and Gaza. Now, there are a lot of different flavors of Christian Zionism. Mine was couched in Mormonism, but it's basically the belief that the country of Israel had to be formed before Jesus could come again, and it has to be defended so he can come again. Now, the ability for Israel to defend itself, something we hear all the time, is crucial in this belief system because they also believe that Israel's going to do something to piss off the whole world. The whole world is going to hate them and want to fight them. Now, this is where in the Mormon version, the Mormons come in to save the day because is this a geopolitical conflict that has nothing to do with them? Yeah, no. They're always the main character in their own stories. So 2 Mormon prophets will come and defend Jews, defend Israel against all the rest of the world that is fighting them until they are killed. And then they will be paraded around the streets for 3 days and resurrected in front of everyone. Then Jesus will come back and destroy everyone who fought against him.
Why Biden's hand always seems so tied and he can't do much with this Israel situation? I want you to take a look with me at a document that one of my friends who's also into history sent me this morning. It's an official document from the U.S. Embassy in Israel. And this is all online. You all can check it out yourself. But this is the part I want you all to pay attention to. The U.S. is Israel's largest single trading partner. The top 5 U.S. exports to Israel are diamonds, machinery, agriculture products, aircraft, optics, medical, blah, 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 blah. The U.S. is Israel's largest single trading partner. That's the important part. It comes down to money, wealth, resources, whatever you want to call it. Human lives is not what they care about. And for anyone thinking, would they really sacrifice human lives for wealth? I invite you to take a look into something called U.S. history and the West African slave trade. Yes, the U.S. puts wealth and resources over human lives. They have always done historically, and why would they stop now? But I have some good news. The boycott we're doing of Disney, McDonald's, and Starbucks, it's working.
Guys, the McDonald's stocks are down. The Disney, the Starbucks stocks are down. So guys, we have to keep boycotting these corporations. Free Palestine.
I've seen about 6 TikToks this morning about how the stocks for those companies are down. It's working. Keep the fight going, everyone. I know it might be easy to lose steam, but we are fighting for human lives. We are fighting for humanity. The people of Palestine are us and we are them. It doesn't matter if we look different, if we believe different, if we worship different, if we speak different. We are humanity and we need to stand together and rise up together. Keep the boycott going. It's working. Keep spreading awareness. It's working. Keep being the media. It's working. We're not going to stop until we see a free Palestine.
This is your daily update on what's going on in Palestine. 2 days ago, the Egyptian border was finally opened, allowing only 20 trucks of essential aid to pass through. Just for comparison, 100 to 500 trucks of aid enter Gaza every day on a normal basis. 20 trucks is nowhere near enough to provide the aid for 2 million people plus the injuries that they have. And I know what some of you might be thinking, didn't the US veto a bill in the United Nations to provide aid? Why provide it now? And if you ask me, it's because Genocide Joe's public image right now looks so bad since him and his administration are funding this ethnic cleansing that he needed to broker this deal himself and take credit for it. And like clockwork, he gets on and posts, "That's why I secured an agreement for the first shipment of humanitarian aid assistance." Meanwhile, the missile strikes on Palestinian civilians continues, with the unaliving toll reaching more than 4,000 people and over 1,000 of those being kids. It's gotten to the point where the children of Gaza are writing their names on their bodies so that they can be identified if they're found. Meanwhile, the Israeli military missile striked a mosque in the Jenin refugee camp, and a lot of you may think that this mosque has to be in Gaza, right? Jenin refugee camp is located in the northern West Bank, and it's hundreds of miles away from where Gaza is. Please keep in mind that the 2 million Palestinians that live here are completely under the Israeli military's control. They have no weapons, and there's no Hamas here, and they still got hit. This, of course, comes after widespread protests all along the West Bank, and this is the Israeli military's way of saying you are not safe from airstrikes either. And when things like this happen, you guys have to ask yourself, is this a war against Hamas, or is this an ethnic cleansing against all Palestinians? This is your daily update on what's going on in Palestine. 2 days ago, the Egyptian border was finally opened, allowing only 20 trucks of essential aid to pass through. Just for comparison, 100 to 500 trucks of aid enter Gaza every day on a normal basis. 20 trucks is nowhere near enough to provide the aid for 2 million people plus the injuries that they have. And I know what some of you might be thinking, didn't the US veto a bill in the United Nations to provide aid? Why provide it now? And if you ask me, it's because Genocide Joe's public image right now looks so bad since him and his administration are funding this ethnic cleansing that he needed to broker this deal himself and take credit for it. And like clockwork, he gets on and posts, "That's why I secured an agreement for the first shipment of humanitarian aid."
Let's talk about the World War III news. No, literally, World War III is definitely brewing up. So there's an interview with Lloyd Austin and ABC News, and they're talking about the deployment of U.S. troops and assets and all this, and why the United States aircraft carriers now going to the Persian Gulf. It seems like the United States is ready for a war with Iran anyways. Watch this.
Start with those moves you announced late yesterday, last night. You've got the USS Eisenhower going to the Persian Gulf. You've got more missile defense systems headed to the region. Troops put on standby. What's behind these moves?
Well, Jonathan, as you know, recently we've seen rocket and UAV attacks against bases housing our troops in Iraq and Syria. We're concerned about potential escalation. In fact, what we're seeing is the prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and our people throughout the region. And because of that, we're going to do what's necessary to make sure that our troops are in the right, good position, they're protected, and that we have the ability to respond. Now, this additional deployment sends another message to those who would seek to widen this conflict. As President Biden said earlier, and as you've heard me say, if any group or any country is looking to widen this conflict and take advantage of this very unfortunate situation that we see, our advice is don't.
Oh boy, don't. But that's not all. We have China ramming Filipino boats as well. So China's starting to get aggressive too. Here's another vid. Just ram right into it. This is on an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. Just showing them arming up their fighters and getting ready. Then we have Israel getting ready on the Gaza border. They're getting ready to move at any moment now. This is why the United States is putting out so many warnings. Russia and China might get dragged into this too, guys, for real. Expect the unexpected. Russia also shut down the Crimean Bridge today. Yeah, they shut down the bridge again. They didn't give a reason, but the Ukrainian media is saying that they heard rocket explosions. Not on the bridge, but in the distance. The United States is warning the Middle East against aggression, more towards Iran. The U.S. is sending THAAD systems and another missile carrier strike group. So, just letting y'all know, the tensions are getting high in the Middle East. Putin's message to the United States about Iran: you won't even have time to see what hit you. Russia became the first country with supersonic strategic forces. It's being said that Iran may have the nuclear umbrella from Russia and China as well. That means they'll be protected by Russia's nuclear weapons, just like South Korea and Japan are protected by ours. Now the question is Israel protected by our nuclear weapons? That's a deep question, because now we're expecting a war in the Middle East, and this could really brew out of control really fast. Here's the one about the Philippines saying that a Coast Guard ship and supply boat were rammed by Chinese vessels. The United States is sending drone ships to Navy bases in Japan for deterring China. Like, what the heck is going on, bro? Israel hit Gaza, Syria, and the West Bank. Not only that, they also hit the Lebanon. And U.S. troops are under attack. More news next. This is World War III.
Crazier, please watch this video till the end.
Hi, this is me interrupting your weekend doom scroll to ask you to Google something called the Goldstone Report.
I googled it so you didn't have to, but I will say that this report is 400 pages long. I'm not gonna go through the whole report, but I just wanted to read you a few sections from the conclusion of this report. And for those who don't know what the Goldstone Report is, it is a report of the United Nations fact-finding mission on the Gaza conflict that was made in 2009. I'm going to read you parts of the conclusions and recommendations, and you can find the full report on this link. Section 1891. It is clear from evidence gathered by the mission that the destruction of food supplies installations water sanitation systems, concrete factories, and residential houses was the result of a deliberate and systemic policy by the IS armed force. It was not carried out because those objects presented a military threat or opportunity, but the make of the daily process of living and dignified living more difficult for the civilian population. Section 1892. Allied to the systemic destruction of the economic capacity of the Gaza Strip, there appears also to have been an assault of the dignity of the people. This was seen not only in the use of human shields and unlawful detention, sometimes in unacceptable conditions, but also in the vandalization of houses when occupied and the way in which people were treated when their houses were entered. The graffiti on the walls, the obscenities, and often our slogans all constituted an overall image of humiliation and dehumanization of the Palestinian population. Section 1893. The operations were carefully planned in all their phases. Legal opinions and advice were given throughout the planning stages and at certain operational levels during the campaign. There were almost no mistakes made according to the government of IS. It is in these circumstances that the mission concludes that what occurred in just over 3 weeks at the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009 was deliberately disproportionate attack designed to punish, humiliate, and terrorize a civilian population, radically diminishing its local economic capacity both to work and to provide for itself, and to force upon it an ever-increasing sense of dependency and vulnerability. Section 1894. The mission has noted with concern public statements by the IS officials, including senior military officials, to the effect that the use of disproportionate force, attacks on civilian population, and the destruction of civilian property are legitimate means to achieve an IS military and political objectives. The mission believes that such statement not only undermine the entire regime of international law, they are inconsistent with the spirit of the Charter of the United Nations and therefore deserve to be categorically denounced. Section 1895. Whatever violations of the international humanitarian and human rights law may have been committed, the systemic and deliberate nature of the activities described in this report leave the mission in no doubt that responsibility lies in the first place with those who designed, planned, ordered, and oversaw the operations. And it is on the same website that you will find the plan. Dale, I urge everybody to read that plan because this proves that everything that has been done by the IS government until now in the Gaza Strip, but as well as in the West Bank, is premeditated. It's premeditated, okay? It has been this way since 1947, I believe. Just go and read like all of this because it's crazy. And y'all want to know what's crazier? Please watch this video till the end.
Hi, this is me interrupting your weekend doom scroll.
About to blow your mind. See, I don't care where you land on this issue, but if you're a human being, like a fucking human being, right? Hang with me for 1 second. So as soon as I heard that Israel cut off Palestine's water, my first thought was, who the fuck cuts off water to millions of children and civilians during a time of war? What kind of a barbaric act is that? And my second thought was, wait, why the fuck does Israel control Palestine's water? And a brief search got me to this fucking article by Amnesty International titled The Occupation of Water. Alright? Soon after Israel occupied the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, the Israeli military authorities consolidated complete power over all water resources and water-related infrastructure in the occupied Palestinian territories, OPT. And I know what you're thinking. Well, they took over existing infrastructure to build some new one. Israeli Military Order 158 stated that Palestinians could not construct any new water installation without first obtaining a permit from the Israeli army. Since then, the extraction of water from any new source, the development of any new water fucking water infrastructure would require permits from Israel, which are near impossible possible to obtain. It gets fucking better. They are unable to drill new water wells, install pumps, or deepen existing wells, in addition to being denied access to the Jordan River, right? Israel even controls the collection of rainwater throughout most of the West Bank, and rainwater harvesting cisterns owned by Palestinian communities are often destroyed by the Israeli army. As a result, some 180 Palestinian communities in rural areas in the occupied West Bank have no access to running water. They don't have access to fucking running water, bro. What the fuck is going on here? Because the resulting disparity in access to water between Israelis and Palestinians is truly staggering. Water consumption by Israelis is at least 4 times that of Palestinians living in the OPT. Palestinians consume an average of 73 liters of water per day per person, which is well below the World Health Organization's recommended daily minimum. Motherfucking minimum. In rural areas, it's as low as 20 liters per person per day. And how much water do Israelis drink? Sure, I'll tell you. By contrast, an average Israeli consumes approximately 300 liters of water per day. You see, we talk a lot about values, but let me tell you something about American values. If I took my fucking dog to a restaurant right now, the server or the owner on their own dime would bring out a cup of water for a stranger's fucking dog. For a stranger's fucking dog. This isn't during wartime. This is status quo. What kind of an insidious, fucking sick fucking government will make it a point to make sure, intentionally, that an entire population stays thirsty? People out here talking about freedom, voting rights, passports, airplanes. Can I get medical? Can I get education? Fucking water. You intentionally deprive a large group of people from having water. You are dehydrating children fucking intentionally. Who the fuck? What is going on here? So that's why you gotta make shit up about Palestinians to match the insidious nature of the way that you're treating them. That's fucking disgusting. This is status quo.
I will never forget the ice cream truck with dead bodies. I will never forget the father who took his martyr's kids' body parts in a bag. I will never forget when 40 people were killed on their way to the south. I will never forget the man sitting hopelessly on rubble with a teddy bear. I will never forget the tears of an old man who lost his home, which it took him 40 years to build. I will never forget the boy who screamed and asked, "Where are the Arabs?" I will never forget that they performed surgeries without anesthesia on the streets. I will never forget the hospital's ground filled with martyrs' children body parts. I will never forget the mother giving last hug to her child. I will never forget that even after 14 days, no one helped or made it stop. I will never forget war crime over war crime and calling it self-defense. We will never forget the silence of all Muslim nations, even those who call themselves nuclear powers. But don't worry, Allah is watching. Unquestionably, the help of Allah is near. I will never forget.
Look at this shit. Look at the shit that I have to do. This heating pad's supposed to go on.
It derailed Joe Biden's Middle East visit. It started a raging global debate. The explosion at the hospital in Gaza City on Tuesday night and its bloody aftermath. Tonight, audio and photographic analysis sheds new light on what happened. First, the audio analysis. This comes from a consortium of prominent NGOs specializing in human rights investigations. Earshot investigators have analysed 2 aspects of the blast which killed so many at the Christian hospital. First, Doppler effect sound analysis of the missile tracking to the hospital that night.
It's the compression of sound waves as a moving object is accelerating towards you, and that object is emitting sound, and then as it's moving away, that frequency decreases, that pitch decreases.
That analysis produced this mapping. The red line is where the Israelis said the missile was fired from by, they say, Islamic Jihad from within southwestern Gaza. But this new Doppler sound mapping analysis concludes that the missile came from a variety of possible firing points, the blue arrows, all east of the hospital, not west, as the IDF claimed. That map arose from this Doppler mapping of the audio of the missile flying to impact at the hospital. And that sound recorded by a geolocated eyewitness 150 meters southeast of the hospital. The second aspect examined is the tape released by the Israeli Defense Forces. The IDF says it is 2 Hamas operatives discussing how an Islamic Jihad missile fired from in Gaza malfunctioned, causing the hospital explosion. 2 nights ago, we reported that Arab-speaking experts raised questions about the tone and language of this tape. The forensic sound analysis states, quote, "This recording is made up of 2 separate channels and demonstrates that these 2 voices have been recorded independently. These 2 independent recordings have then been edited together in a digital audio workstation, such as Pro Tools, Logic, Audition, have added effects, such as pan control, and recomposed. That being their analysis, what do they then conclude? Though this audio analysis cannot categorically state that the audible dialogue is fake, we can say that the level of manipulation required to edit these 2 voices together disqualifies it as a source of credible evidence. Earshot's opinion is that this recording does not meet the standard required for evidence and should not be used by the media without the clear caveat that it has been digitally manipulated." We turn now to the image analysis carried out by Forensic Architecture at London University. They've conducted 3D resolution of the impact strike crater and shrapnel splash marks in the hospital car park. Those radial fragmentation marks open towards the southwest, with a shallow channel leading to the crater from the northeast. Their conclusion matches the audio analysis of the missile track. They say whatever hit the hospital car park that night was fired from the northeast and not from the southwest of Gaza, as the Israeli Defense Forces claim.
We also shared this with an independent weapons and explosives expert that corroborated our understanding of the likely direction as coming from the northeast.
They stress this is a preliminary investigation, and they, like many, call for a full inquiry, unlikely in the heat of raging war. Hamas and Islamic Jihad have so far offered little evidence to back their claims that Israel fired the missile at the hospital that night. Islamic Jihad claimed to have a missile fragment, but have not produced it. And the US agrees with Israel's version of events. We've approached the IDF for comment.